Hello, my name is Java Guo. I am a PhD. I am a PhD graduate from the English department of the National Zhenji University. I here to talk about my research. Okay, my supervisor is Dr. Frank Stevenson. He famously wrote Zhangzhi style as background noise. In which Dr. Stevenson tried to connect Nietzsche with Zhangzhi, and Dr. Stevenson is also my supervisor for my MA thesis. My MA thesis is called Existential Groundlessness in Hemingway's The Sun Also Rises and Jack Kerouac's On the Road. I cannot use Nietzsche's dual notion on Apollonian firm and the Dionysian abandon in The Birth of a Tragedy, and also Heidegger's idea about the Zen, which means the temporality of existence, and such as concept of for itself and of itself, to explain what is the sense of existential groundlessness among post-war American youth in the 1920s, represented by Hemingway and Fitzgerald. And also I criticize the blindfolded worship of Orientalism in hippie generation. They kind of use the Oriental concept or Oriental religious beliefs to justify or patronize their own hedonistic behavior. So I try to look into the misperception between cultures in my thesis. And since I talk about the 20s and the 50s and the 60s in my thesis, as the two world war has fundamentally changed people's mind and the spirit, so I decided to fill up the gap in between with my PhD dissertation, which is about the Great Depression, the period between First and the Second World War. In my dissertation, Sex, Violence, and Anarchy, the body politics of American crime fiction from the 1920s to 1940s, I extrapolate that the sex, violence, and the anarchy are three dominant elements of American crime fiction, and they are what set American crime fiction apart. What makes American crime fiction unique from other countries' crime fiction is these three dominant qualities: sex, violence, and anarchy. For example, it's definitely different from Sherlock Holmes. Okay, so I use three novels from the example to represent that three dominant quality. For example, Dashiell Hammett's Ray Harvest, published in 1929, is also the first gangster novel, and James N. Cain's Double Indemnity, published in 1946, and Raymond Chandler's The Lady in the Lake, also published in 1943. And my focus will be how the reader perceives the crime, and how they perceive the crime in their mind, and how they imagine the crime, given their own desire, phobia, and obsession. Also, in terms of the female body, I use a concept called from Heidegger. It's called das Ding. Das Ding means a thing. It's like a woman is a thing. It's like she's either a murder victim, a toy, or she's a goddess put on the pedestal, femme fatale versus female murder victims. So that's the politicization of the gender, the female gender I try to talk about in the American crime fiction. Regarding my published paper, I try to do many cross-cultural research about, such as the first sinology written by Pearl S. Bach is called she's American. She was an American woman raised in China. So that's why I was talking about how she bridges the East and the West. Also, the Xinyan Sono's crime noir, Guilty of Romance, is a Japanese version of a film noir, and how Japanese create the film noir and or the neo noir, and the Junkie Ito's comics Tommy, and also how the Westernization has influenced Chinese food pirating to medical tourism in East Asia, particularly Japan and China. I also extend my research to the perception of nature, female body, and abortion, such as Catholic Christianity and Chinese Buddhism, and the difference between Eastern and Western spirituality through the example of the Nanking Capsule Tower. As for the Taiwan issue, I have published an essay on the constitutional reform in Taiwan, and I try to explain how Taiwan's absence in the United Nations affect the domestic environmental issue. So that's what I've been doing. First of all, I need to thank you again for your patience of listening to the content of my research for years. Now I shall explain to you about my ideas and the style of teaching in terms of English learning. I believe in the constructivist way of teaching, and in other words, American knows concept of andragogy, meaning the art and the science of helping adults to learn. So what are the principles of constructivism in terms of teaching or learning? They are itemized as follows. First item 1, knowledge is constructive rather than innate or passively absorbed. In this aspect, I wish to use English learning to decolonize my students, who shall not be agents of Anglophone imperialism forever trapping an illusion of self-inferiority. I want to build people up rather than pull them down. Item 2, learning is an active process. I had to stress that they should be here for themselves, not for their parents, who generously unburden them by paying off their tuition. Item 3, all knowledge is socially constructed. Here I shall explain how Taiwan's absence from the United Nations has contributed to the notion of the light of Taiwan. Item 4, all knowledge is personal. Here I would encourage students to personalize what they see in the world with empathy, not sympathy. Item 5, learning exists in the mind. There are 3 approaches to constructivist teaching: cognitive, social, and radical constructivist teaching. My focus will be upon social constructivist teaching. I want to inspire empathy in students. Then we shall make a cross-cultural comparison in issues like body image and abortion, etc. I drew on my students' life experience to aid learning while they learn to meet what is required in their social life and the rules. I am a problem-centered teacher who wants to apply new issues immediately. As a result, I prefer to address on what is happening now in the world to correct people's existing bias about learning English as a tool. I want them, my students, to be motivated to learn by internal rather than external factors. For example, there is a curriculum I once designed, but I update the chosen article according to the changes of time. Body dysmorphic disorder has been addressed seriously in Europe. Years ago, when BDD Foundation was founded in the United Kingdom in 2013, when AIDS sufferers were predominantly women. However, time has changed, and the BBD has no longer been a female issue, but a male problem too. I therefore update my curriculum with the discussion of bigorexia. In the words of male fitness, as a body image is now a universal problem for all genders. In my experience of teaching English in the Language Center of the National Central University, students there were high school overachievers who work hard to earn their privilege to accept the best quality of education funded by the government. It is not surprising that they have been systematically well-trained in the cram schools to utter positive key phrases like learn English to broaden your horizon, or learn English to step out of your comfort zone. And I have heard that well-scored but highly similar self-introduction from 30 students in a class at least. It is my wish to humanize my students as individuals rather than test machines who automatically repeat the right words without understanding or embracing the context of the culture, history, and the social changes. I want to build a cooperative climate for them while assessing their specific needs and interests. Here I suggest global learning for the underachievers. These are my beliefs in education as well as English learning. Thank you again for following me so far. It would be a pleasure to be able to actualize my ideals rather than just talk about them. Thank you again for the opportunity. I'm Dr. Jia Wengu.